Good.
So what about mystery?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. What about it?
Because
Talk to me
there's
about
a
mystery. Yeah.
there's a number of people on here. Probably everyone has some form of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Authors, musicians, painters, artists.
Mm-hmm.
And where does the inspiration come from? We've
Mm.
heard songwriters say the song just came to me. Um,
Yeah.
and because it's mystery, I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just looking for a conversation.
Right. Right. But you're an artist,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So you tell me.
Um, this late last year, early this year, I
Mm-hmm.
came to realize or become aware of the fact that the art that resonates the best, the art that resonates with me is that which comes through me rather than I'm going to paint a picture of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, so I'm intrigued by mystery. I'm intrigued by intuition. Those things that we can't put our fingers on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just reading the night before last a piece in the latest issue of the New Yorker about Mark Twain, um, and 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 how Mark Twain wrote somewhere that for him writing was always fine when it just came without effort, when the story, the characters, they would just unfold for him, and he was like a an amanuensis, a secretary just setting it down, and that when that wasn't happening, when he had to work at it, it was just real like impossible. But he had to do it because he kept making the equivalent of millions of dollars and then sinking them in bad investments and lavish living and so forth. And that's why we have some just great writing from Mark Twain and some not so good writing from Mark Twain. You can tell the difference. You can tell the stuff that was inspired and the stuff where he was just working at it. I mean, the one thing I can tell you, for one thing, you have to find the medium that works for you. There was one point around 2005 when I suddenly got inspired by taking pictures. I started doing photography, and I tapped into some. I was just it's like my vision woke up and I was seeing all these incredible pictures and capturing with the camera. And I wound up actually having a show in the gallery at the school where I was teaching. And I've still got in our storage space here, a bunch of these that I had, printed and mounted, and I think some really good pictures. And not long after that, I completely lost it. I lost my mojo for photography, and I lost my inspiration to do it. Now, even when we're traveling or in India, whatever, all this incredible stuff going, I let Yafa take pictures. I'm mostly not that interested. You know, but for me mainly it's writing and it's music. And the main thing I can tell you is you have to start. You have to start. And for me, there tends to be a lot of resistance to starting because I don't know how to write. How can I start writing when I don't know how to write? But that's backwards. It's not that you know what to write and so then you start. It's you start and then the engine gets going, you get into the flow of it, and then the stuff starts coming. The stuff starts coming. And you can find it if you read my books, there's passages there where I was really in it. And then there's like Mark Twain, there's other passages where I was working at it. I was having to, nail it in board by board, and you can tell the difference. But the word mystery comes from Greek roots meaning literally eyes closed. And they had what they called the mystery religions. They had the what was it, Eleusinian mysteries, and a couple of where they would literally take people and their eyes would be closed, they would be blindfolded or something, and they would be brought into the presence of the oracle, the representative of the god or the goddess, and they would, get some powerful mojo would happen to them. So eyes closed is a pretty good hint. The Maybe the best words ever written about this were from John Keats, the great Romantic poet, who wrote in a letter to his brother that the key to creativity, he said, in any field, and particularly, he said, in literature, because that was his field, he said, this is quoting verbatim or almost verbatim, he said, what I call negative capability. That is the ability to be in the presence of doubts and uncertainties without any irritable grasping after fact and reason. Right? The ability to just, negative capability. In other words, the ability to do nothing, which is what we call meditation. But just, so we're cultivating that in our meditation. We're getting into the habit of being with whatever's going on without any irritable grasping after anything, without trying to figure it out, without trying to figure out what to do, how to get there, because you can't get there by figuring it out. You can only get there by giving up trying to do anything. So then so we get more and more used to knowing what that place is. The nervous system, literally, neurologically, the nervous system gets used to being settled in that place. So that's going to, when we then go into David, you go into your workshop, or I, sit or usually stand at my computer keyboard, it's going to be easier. It's going to be more familiar for us to, go to that place and do it from there.
Well, that's that flow state that we
Yeah.
talk about sometimes, the flow state.
Yeah.
Because I find, actually, I've been thinking about this lately regarding art, and it's, why do we call it artwork?
Right.
It really should be art play,
Mm-hmm.
or playing with
Mm-hmm.
ideas of art or whatever. And so those ideas, the art
excuse me, that's a nice thing about music, that in music they call it
yes,
play. We're gonna play, at least in English. In
yeah,
I don't know about other, in Spanish they call it to touch, tocar. You toca the instruments, you touch the instruments. But I like the idea of playing. I love the quote from Charlie Parker, who, as a young guy, drove the neighbors crazy practicing scales for like 12 hours a day until it was all second nature. So he could, and he said, he said, you have to do all that. You learn your instrument and then you just play.
mm-hmm.
And that's when Jesus says to enter into the kingdom of heaven, be like a young child. What do children do? They play. They don't work at it. They have that lightness. They have that that lack of effort, that lack of strain, that lack of trying to make things make sense. They're going with the flow.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you.